What's up, everybody, and good morning. It is Championship Saturday here. Welcome to another episode of the Scout and Combine. I'm your host, Hussam Patel, and I'm joined by my boy JB. JB, how you doing today, my guy?
I'm good, man. It's gonna be a good Saturday of college football. Kind of actually like the 12 o'clock slate before we actually get to the SEC title game. So it's gonna be pretty intriguing to see what goes down.
It's gonna be pretty intriguing to see it go down. And look, not a lot of people thought that Utah would win against Oregon, but us guys who have been watching, we look at these matchups, these players, and these coaching staff. Um, Before even the game started, you could sense the feeling that Utah would make it a really, really good game. And in season 2, Utah destroyed Oregon when they were the number 3 ranked team. So Utah took care of business last night. What did you see when you watched that game?
It was one of those games that it just went away. It just went away so quickly. You don't even get a chance to really get too much into an analysis about it because the game seemingly fell over as soon as it started. You have the Anthony Brown pick six early by Devin Lloyd, who's an outstanding linebacker prospect in his own right. It's one of those things where you watch the game. Going into the game, I actually thought Utah was going to beat them as bad as they beat them in the regular season again. But just the way that with just the way the game went in the first meeting, you can just tell Utah just came with a different kind of energy. And I think one thing that changed Utah a lot was the addition of Cam Rising this season. We're talking about a quarterback. If they had him, maybe them in Oregon flips places, or maybe they have one less win, and they're probably one of those teams in the top 7 or 6 looking for somebody to lose this weekend and try to bump into the college football playoffs.
And speaking of these college football playoffs, these first 7 years of the CFP, the four teams that have always been there is Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. And look, man, after a crazy rivalry week, we're close to seeing none of these teams potentially after these championship games conclude. So it's going to be very, very important today. For your critics of this 4-team playoff, have argued that expanding the field will be good for the game and get more programs involved. Instead, what happened, the middle class of these teams rose up and defeated these elite programs who have dominated the CFP era. Look, the Battle of Bedlam crowned Oklahoma State the winner for the first time since 2014. Jim Harbaugh finally got his signature win as Ohio State completely collapsed against Michigan. Meanwhile, Alabama scraped by Auburn in the Iron Bowl in their 4-overtime win, but they're limping at best right now as they prepare to walk into the wood chipper. That is the number 1 Georgia Bulldogs, and we'll talk about the SEC championship game later on. Let's talk about the one coming up at noon, the Big 12 championship game, Oklahoma State versus Baylor. Right now, the line is moving in Oklahoma State's favor by 5.5 points. The over-under point total for this game is around 46.5. Look, man, all of the pressure is on the Cowboys to not only win the game, but do it in a convincing manner that it'll be enough for this CFP committee to swoon. Look, they're not going to be able to get 3 takeaways again against this Baylor offense and defense. Baylor has gotten better. So what does Oklahoma State need to do to defeat Baylor and get into that top 4 spot?
Well, now that we're talking about, I know a few minutes ago they just announced that Gary Bohannon's not going to play due to hamstring injury. Now we're talking about the idea of maybe they do get 3 takeaways today now with a different quarterback coming in who I don't think we've seen him all year. I haven't watched a ton of Baylor games, but it's just one of those things where he's coming into the biggest game of the year for them, and he's going to have to probably have the game of his life. So maybe we're talking about a veteran Oklahoma State defense. I think that's what makes Oklahoma State so good. So many of their guys they're a team loaded with super seniors from the COVID years, having guys who are probably going to be preferred free agents, late round day 3 picks at the next level. They're just a very experienced group. They're not overly talented, but they play well together, and you can tell they've been in these big games, these situations, which is why, as you alluded to, the middle class rose up this year. Oklahoma State, if you look back at the rivalry, the statistics of the Bedlam rivalry, Oklahoma State never wins that game. Like it's not really a rivalry at all. They just happen to be in the same state at the end of the day. But it's cool to see Oklahoma State come out and play well this year. Like you said, when you ask for playoff expansion, it's weird because like every year with the 4 teams, you're asking for oh, dang, can we get that fifth and sixth team in? Because we really liked watching them play all year. But this year's been weird because it's like no one wants to be one of those top four teams except Georgia, which has been exceptionally better than everybody else. So it's like, do we really want a 12-team playoff if everybody's going to play like this? But it's good to have that parity in college football now, especially with you see coaches switching. So like we have a possibility of USC coming back here soon. So 12 might be the perfect number. And this Big 12 championship game could be exciting. Oklahoma State, they come out and just do what they do on defense, play disciplined football, play together. I think they'll be fine. They're gonna have to take away Abraham Smith because he's
Yes.
he's a stud. Now we're talking about, he was already the focal point coming into the game, but now with the backup quarterback coming in, they have to run the ball. They have to run the football because you don't want to put the game in the backup quarterback's hands too much. So.
And look, this Cowboys offense is also balanced in the past game. The running game is great, and they play really, really good defense. That defense is intense. And I really look at the freshman who's up and coming, Colin Oliver, one of the edge slash outside linebackers, too. That man is a dude. That man is a dude just balling now as a freshman. So he might go ahead and feast on the quarterback, the new quarterback, since Gary Bohannon is out with a leg injury. But on the defensive side for the Baylor Bears, they haven't allowed more than 125 rushing yards in the last 7 games since their loss to the Cowboys. So how is this going to be the game where Spencer Sanders beats Baylor through the air?
That's tough because I'm not a fan of Spencer Sanders as a passer, to be honest with you. A lot of the allure from his game is going to be him being an athlete. That's what it is at the end of the day. He's got to be able to put the ball on the ground and make plays with his legs in order for them to be successful as a team. I think what really helps them is he has a bell cow back, not in Jalen Warren, who's about 5'8", about 215, like he's rocked up, maybe even 5'6", 5'7". He's tiny, but dude packs a punch. He totes the rock. He came in earlier in the year out of nowhere, Utah State transfer. Came in early in the year. Their biggest game of the year against Boise earlier in the year. He ran for like 212 or something of that nature, and really just put himself into the scene. His production this year has been insane. I think Baylor's going to try to force Spencer Sanders to beat them through the air, obviously. But with Baylor, it's amazing how Baylor's able to be, I wouldn't say they're an elite run stopping team. They're solid at it, and it's good for them to be as solid as they are with them playing a nickel, playing their base defense being a nickel defense. So I'm excited to see what they do through the air. I love a lot of the guys in the secondary for Baylor. Tejada, you've got Jalen Peter is probably one of my absolute
Fantastic.
favorite players in this whole draft class. I mean, he's been awesome. They were talking about Caitlyn Barnes, the guy who just accepted his invite to the Shrine Bowl recently. Probably one of the freakiest athletes in this whole draft class, and definitely out of the corner class.
You said Caleb Barnes, right?
Yeah, the corner on the other side. So I'm excited to actually sit down and watch these guys. You see a lot of them throughout the season, cross-checking and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see how this game goes.
And since you're one of the seniors, the Shrine Bowl scouts as well, you might actually get to see them play in the game as well. So this would be fun, scouting those guys and seeing them live action play in the Shrine Bowl game. So it's honestly going to be fun to see, that work you've put through, the work that they've put through, and finally see it on the football field as one big team. Now, as we move on, before we move on, what do you think the game's outcome is going to be? Who wins this and by how much?
First of all, I don't know anything about betting on, so like the 5.5, 6.5, +6, -6, I have no idea what all that stuff means.
I'll show you. I'll give you a crash course right here, and for all the betting degenerates out there, you guys are probably moaning and groaning at JB right now. So here's a little crash course. So a -5.5 means that a team is favored to win by 5.5 points, usually 5 points or more.
Okay.
If they lose, that betting line is, you lost your money ASAP. The over-under.
I know total, that part. That's the only thing I know. Over-under. I know that.
Yeah, that's the point part. So Oklahoma State is favored by 5.5 points. So if they win by 5 to 6 points, they covered and they won, and you won some type of money. Now, if Baylor wins by any margin, you automatically lose your money. And if you bet it on Baylor, that plus 5.5, you win a crap ton of money. Because usually, if a team is an underdog and you place money, you're projected to win more money.
Huh.
That's all it is.
Fascinating.
Fascinating, exactly. And look, man, sportsbook betting is a whole nother world. There's a whole nother world, JB. If you got some time in the offseason, you could go ahead and take a look at that.
How did what did you say the over under was?
The over under the point total was a 46.5.
Is that high for a normal game or what?
That's not normal for a Big 12 game.
Interesting. Well, yeah, we're talking about two good defenses. So if it's 46.5, we're talking about roughly 23 for each team, 20 probably 24 because I guess 46.5 you had to go 47 to go over that. Yeah. So talking about 24 each team. Interesting. Very interesting. I mean, I don't know. Not having Gary Bohan just changed everything for me. I didn't think he was a dominant passer anyway, but like you said, I mean, Baylor's just gotten better as the season's gone along. Things started to click for them as the season's gone along. He has started the football over against some teams, and then we're talking about opportunistic defense in Oklahoma State makes it difficult. So I'm gonna say Oklahoma State wins. I think it's gonna be a dogfight of a game. I think it's gonna be one of those few times you watch a Big 12 game and it kind of has a Big 10 like feel to it.
Right.
I think the physicality level is going to be there for both teams. I think Abraham Smith, I think he's probably going to have a good day despite Oklahoma State loading up the box to try and stop him. Hopefully his backup quarterback can do enough to keep those guys out of the box. You know, Oklahoma State still runs a multiple defense. They do play a lot of DBs on the field, so they can be had in the run game. But still somehow I think they're like 6th or 7th in the country in rushing yards per game given up. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm excited to see the Big 12 kind of change its style of play. This championship is a lot different than what you expect from the Big 12.
It is, and you know, I'm gonna just put it out there. I'm putting up a 24-21 win by Oklahoma State.
Okay.
That's what I'm putting up. Now, as we move on from one big conference to another, we're going straight to the Big Ten between Michigan and Iowa. Now, JB, the line for this game, Michigan is favored to win by 13 points, and the over-under is 43.5. So let's take this into account what Vegas has done and save that for your score prediction later on. Now, look, the Wolverines, clear advantage with its rushing attack. They ran for close to 300 yards in a 42-27 win in the game against Ohio State. And running back Hassan Haskins, man, he's been on a tear lately. He led that ground attack with 5 touchdowns. But on the other side, the Iowa Hawkeyes, they have a top 20 rushing defense that allows close to 106 rushing yards per game. But they have not faced a team with a ground attack like Michigan for most of the season. Now, if the Hawkeyes can't stop the ground game, are they in serious trouble against Michigan?
Oh, absolutely. That's game over. It's simple as that. We came out and watched the Ohio State game last week. As soon as you realize that Ohio State's not going to be physical enough up front, you just felt like the game, like part of you felt like Ohio State always had a chance simply because it was Ohio State. But if you're watching any other football game and not looking at the logos, you would have felt like that game was over in the first quarter. It's just the physicality that Michigan came out with, the way they played, the way they attacked on offense. That's made you feel like, oh, they know what they're doing. They came out with a plan. They're executing their plan, and they're just going to run away with it. I feel like that's how they're going to have to come out against Iowa today. And Iowa, the interesting about Iowa, I think they're really good up front. Their linebackers to me are more athletes who I think can get better in the run game. So it's always interesting to see how they're top 20 defense. This is going to be a weird game. 43.5. So 44, 22 each team.
Again, Big Ten game. It's going to be lots of defense played.
I'd probably go the under on that, to be honest with you.
You're going the under on that. Ooh, so it could be like a 13-10 game, you feel like. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about in a game like this, two teams that run the ball heavily. Each team may get 5 possessions apiece.
Wow.
If we're talking about – I don't know if you watched the Michigan-Wisconsin game last weekend during rivalry weekend. I'm thinking a game similar to that. Their time possession was insane. I mean, there are points where I think Minnesota had the ball the whole first quarter, then Wisconsin just had the whole second quarter. It's kind of that ordeal. I don't
Oh
see.
man, if that's gonna happen, it's gonna be a slow but good game.
That's my kind of football at the end of the day. I love it. And I think
Yeah,
the Michigan
you like. I know you like possession type of football. You're on the field for the entire quarter, and you gassed basically. You
and,
gassed.
and the Michigan team I saw last week is a team that I want to see in the playoffs. Just
Mm.
the way they played last week is what a championship team looks like, in my opinion. So
Ooh.
I really want to see them get in, see what they can do. Hopefully, just come out here and get rid of Iowa. It's a lot easier said than done. Iowa's a tough team, tough program. Obviously, they're going to show up in a big game. And the Big Ten title games in the past have been pretty good as far as I can remember. Even when you talk about like a Northwestern waking up last year to Justin Fields.
Oh
So
yeah, that was that game was really good. But look, man, the Hawkeyes quarterbacks, they've suffered 30 sacks over 12 regular season games, and if this offensive line doesn't hold up against Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo, I mean, it's going to be a long day for them.
mm,
Tyler Goodson could be Iowa's top offensive threat on Saturday. He produced 3 100-yard games in the final month of the regular season, but he was silenced by Purdue and Wisconsin. So the big question is, where will Iowa's offense come from against this Michigan defense?
your guess is as good as mine. Iowa's one of those teams where Iowa's one of those teams where you just come out every week. You're like, well, I know the defense is going to show up. Let's just see what they can put out on offense. Can they spot their defense like 14 points and just hope their defense is going to play? You bring up the quarterback sacks. It's not always an offensive line thing. Their quarterback struggles to process. He struggles to be decisive. So a lot of those sacks do go on him as well. I don't think it's indicative of the way they play in the trenches. Solely indicative of the way they play in the trenches. So in this Michigan defense, I mean, like you said, Aiden Hutchinson's coming, Chabo's coming. I mean, they just got dudes everywhere, physical. They play fast. They're smart. They're a smart group of guys. Like they're not gonna mess up themselves. And they're one of those teams too that you watch them just get better throughout the season, and then all of a sudden you see it all culminate in last week's performance. And I know I forgot the young defensive coordinator's name, but that was kind of his coming out party for that guy. But really, he's been doing a fantastic job for them all year. It's a little bit of a different pace than what you've expected with Michigan defenses in the past, which was just let's run cover one and teams are going to drag around us, mesh around us to death.
Oh my God, Don Brown's cover one defense was so just I wanted to gauge my eyes out. Good God, and they didn't even have the personnel to run that cover one defense. I was like, why are you doing this, man?
And they still don't have the personnel to run cover one, but it's being able to. You can run it when you have the pass rushers that you have, and you're able to mix it up, let guys play off. It's one thing to play cover one, but it's one thing to play cover one press all game too. I mean, we're talking about running your DB's legs into the ground and within like the first half. So
there's going to be a thing too about personnel. You cannot fit a circle in. I mean, you can't fit a square peg into a circle. You just can't. You can't do that. But look, man, the Wolverines, they have a Heisman Trophy contender in Aiden Hutchinson. He's got 12 sacks. Ojabo, he can put whoever the Iowa quarterback would be under pressure. He's got 11 sacks. But I want to talk about Daxter Hill a little bit, that safety. What have you seen from him last season and this season that makes you say, ooh, I mean, this guy's going to be a real NFL threat for opposing offensive for years to come?
Hill is freaky, man. I mean, I talked about him last week during the live stream. He's a guy that gets me excited because he's a star nickel at the end of the day. So a lot of his projection is still potential of what he can be. His potential's through the roof though, because on the plays that he does play safety, I was telling somebody last week, there's a play where he was playing he's on the opposite hash. There's a fade route to the opposite sideline, and he he just jogs and almost makes a play on the ball. But really, he wasn't even trying to make a play on the ball. He was just jogging to the football just to give like a little effort play so you don't get in trouble in film on Monday type of deal. And he covered so much ground. I was sitting there, I was like, there's no way he just did that. Just half bursting out of his pedal. I was like, that's insane. And like he's excellent athlete. He's physical. He likes to tackle in space. He's safety number 2 for me comfortably. I definitely think he's worthy of a first round pick. He's a guy I went back and forth between him and Lewis Cine over the summer, but then some of the stuff he's put out on tape this year is just it's not. It's crazy, and he still has about 10 more pounds that he can put on his frame. So he's going to be a guy you can at the next level be versatile, and it's crazy because he probably could play corner if he wanted to as well.
You can play outside corner. You think so?
Like he's that kind of athlete. He does struggle to find the ball in the air. I want to see more ball skills out of him, but I mean, there's a lot of corners that we grade in our classes. They're like, well, when the ball goes there, he has no idea what's going on. It's like he wouldn't be the first to the party, but the athleticism's there, man. He's got instincts, and when you watch a guy play the nickel position, you kind of have to be more of a savvy guy to play that spot, depending on what your defense asks of you. Like he's asked to play short zones. He's asked to roll from the nickel spot to a deep zone sometimes. So just being able to see him, the snaps that he does play safety is exciting. And it makes you be like, wow, I'm believing the projection that I have for him. So his potential is going to be through the roof. I'm excited for him as a prospect.
Exciting player for an exciting defense playing in an exciting game. Maybe they could be within that college football playoffs as well as possibly the number 2 team again if they win against Iowa. Let's move on to the big boy game of the day that everybody in the South loves to watch, the SEC championship. This is the SEC.
This is it.
This is it. This is it for Georgia and Alabama. Now the line on this has Georgia winning by 6.5. Georgia has the negative 6.5 line, and the over/under is 49.5. What do you say, JB, about this?
Let me tell you how important this game is. So we have all these college football games that come before it. We have a Big Ten title game that comes after it. Like, this is the game that I go buy the pizza and wings for. This is the game that I get the whole platter spread out. I go buy me some lemonade, sit down, just lay back on the couch, and I don't move. And this is the game that you'll probably actually see me tweeting about today too, because I like to just tweet random stuff during games, like things that I notice, things that drive me nuts, things that I think are funny.
I'll be doing that too, man.
But this game is going to be exciting. I think the thing that scares me the most is this Georgia defense is probably the best defense I've seen in my lifetime in college football. To be honest with you, and I've been watching college football since I was 4 or 5 years old. And I vividly remember a lot of good defenses, especially some Alabama defenses. And I think the Georgia defense is just different. I've never seen a team control the trenches the way they do, and that's coming from both sides of the ball. Actually, it's insane. And usually, when you see a team like Georgia, you say, "Oh, they're going to win." And in my mind, it just makes sense for Georgia to win by 13, 14 points, just by the way they've played and the way that Alabama hasn't been Alabama. But the thing that makes you not want to take that gamble on them is that you just say, well, at the end of the day, it's Nick Saban and it's Bama.
You're right. Exactly. It's Nick Saban. Do you bet against Nick Saban?
Logically, if my best argument for a team is, well, they're Alabama, they're probably going to lose and get cut by about 13. But when it's Bama, it is Bama. Like that is shown to be a real thing, especially when you get to big games, when you get to these crucial moments in the season. And then you have those freaky stats like Nick Saban never loses to his assistant. It's like, man, it just doesn't make sense. So it's just going to be one of those games. I'm excited to see everything happen in the trenches. Georgia's literate prospects. Bama's literate prospects. Bama probably has the best player in college football in Will Anderson Jr. right now. I mean,
he's a dark horse for the Heisman, man.
And that's the crazy thing. He shouldn't be a dark horse at all. It's been clear cut that he's probably been the best player in college football this year. I mean, on the flip side, you do have – and then the other thing that scares me with this game too, we're talking about the greatest defense I've ever seen in college football, but then Bama has this quarterback who's insanely special in Bryce Young. So it's like, man, there's so many things that just kind of –
He's got talent, but look, man, that offensive line doesn't provide a lick of pass protection.
But I did tweet this out last week. The thing about Bryce Young that drives me absolutely nuts is it feels like he has a shot caller at the line of scrimmage, because whenever he starts running, he just stops at the line of scrimmage. There's one thing to keep your eyes up looking down the field as a thrower and running to throw first instead of running to be a runner first as a quarterback. But he's a guy who's really athletic. You watch his high school highlights, you would think
use your legs, bro. Use your legs.
You watch his high school highlights, you think he's the second coming of Kyler Murray probably. But he gets to college. I understand you want to be a pocket passer, so you can pass from the pocket. But at the end of the day, you're hurting your team. You're hurting your offensive line by not taking those running lanes, or halfway taking those running lanes and trying to step back out and make a little jump pass or a flick of the wrist. Like those things are going to hurt your team, especially a team like Georgia. They're going to come after you. You're going to have to run. You have to run at the end of the day against these guys. You can't just sit there in the pocket and think everything's going to be fine and dandy and comfortable. He's going to have to use his legs. He's going to have to get out of the pocket. He's going to actually have to cross the line of scrimmage and go run for a few yards.
Hey, man, imagine Trayvon Walker, imagine Jordan Davis, imagine Nakobe Dean just going right after you.
Exactly. There's no such thing as just staring down the field the whole time with these guys because they're on your back. So we're gonna find out a lot about Bryce.
They'll be in your face. They'll be in your bubble. You know what's the worst thing, JB? I can't even watch this game because I gotta sleep for work later on tonight.
You're gonna have to miss that sleep, my brother. I'm sorry.
I will be able to wait to watch a little bit of the Big Ten championship game as well. But look, man, Georgia's defense brick wall all season long. 79 rushing yards a game, best in the nation in pass defense, number 2 in pass D, and leads the country in total defense. Listen, man, points per game without garbage time, they only allow 3.2 points per game.
Sickening. Absolutely sickening.
Nuts. Absolutely nuts. Now, look, that pass rush, fantastic. Does Alabama have the talent to hang around Georgia? Yeah. Can run with the dogs, does it have the athletes, does it have the where Alabama and Georgia isn't arrogance and confidence? Hell yeah, it does. But Georgia's playing at such a dominant, high level that I have never seen before. But look, who has Georgia played this season, if you really think about
it? Well, that's the funny thing. Someone tried to make this argument with me a few days ago. I said, well, they played an SEC schedule. What else could you ask them to do? And then when they're in the SEC, like you said, we're holding teams at 3.2 points a game. If that doesn't tell you that we're legit, I don't know what else can. Now, maybe you go out there. My worries are still, well, Stetson Bennett's their starting quarterback. That's still what terrifies me at the end of the day. And this Georgia defense is insane. Like, I can't wait to see what Bryce Young does. I can't wait to see them fly around. I'm hoping it's a good game. I don't want it to end up becoming a blowout or anything. So it's gonna be exciting. I can't wait for that. 4:00 can't come soon enough. I'm gonna have to drag myself.
I really wish it was the night game, man. I really wish it was the night game. Really
I can wait that long. I don't think I can wait that long.
I mean, I can't
like
wait that long.
4 is just a prime. Like if you're going 4 or 6, I think that's such a prime time slot.
Like 6 p.m. would be a good slate. Look, man, even Alabama, they lead the SEC in sacks and tackles for loss. You spoke about Stetson Bennett. He's not going to have like 25 days to throw the ball like he enjoyed throughout the season. It may be a long game for Bennett. It may be a long game for Bryce Young as too. So, you think Georgia will win by at least 13 points. So give me the score prediction. Does Alabama make this a closer contest up until the fourth quarter?
I said they should win by 13 points if you look at it with everything you look at it. But I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think I'm going to take Bama by about 4. I'll take Bama by 4 points. I'm not really good. I'm not good with score predictions, but I'll take Bama by 4.
Look at JV, everybody. Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee.
I'm not a hot take guy, but
you feeling spicy, boy. You feeling spicy.
I feel you get into the game like this. First of all, Georgia, like I said, they're dominating in the trenches. And then on the flip side, we're probably seeing the softest Nick Saban team we've ever seen in the trenches, which is weird. But there's something about you get into a game like this, Georgia hasn't really been punched in the mouth all season. Closest thing they had was Clemson and playing that opening game. And opening games are always weird to gauge how a team is. So first game of the season, everybody has their shooters, everything else. You don't really know what your identity is. And personally, I feel like Georgia still doesn't really have an identity on offense. And
just run the ball.
People feel like you'd probably feel like they would because they're trolling. They're just steamrolling through teams. But I think Alabama's going to give them a better test than what they've seen all year. Will Anderson's going to be a different monster than they've ever seen. And I think like Bama has the talent. It's been a discipline thing for them. It's been a communication thing for them. In these kind of games, I expect those kind of things to be cleaned up, and you're going to see those guys come out, play a good game. But I think it's going to be a dogfight, absolute dogfight. Georgia's not going to come out there and blow them out, even though everything in my mind says, well, Georgia should win by like 17, especially after watching the two teams.
These games are emotion based. They're big time games where you think logic will work, but man, emotions run at a big time high, and players make the plays, whether it be the best of the best or the ones who you never would have thought of. So is going to be fantastic. Like Tua, imagine Tua back in 2017. You never would have thought he would have he would have let it. Now look where he is. Now look
Yeah.
where he is.
And it's
So
one thing. There's something to be said about, Georgia doesn't really have the championship pedigree that Bama has. I'm not saying that everybody on Bama's team is playing the national championship game. It's just the fact that you don't know how these teams are going to respond when their backs are against the wall. And I'm expecting this game to be a heavy adverse game. The teams are going to have their back against the wall at different periods of times in the game. It's a matter of who do I trust more to get up off the mat at the end of the day. And I've seen Bryce Young get up off the mat plenty of times this year with the guys with the offensive line getting him killed some games. He had to get up off the mat last week. We saw a freshman get up off the mat and make that game-winning catch last week. I mean, that's sickening. That's a sick stuff to take the game into overtime. Excuse me. And Bama's got playmakers, man. And Georgia has some guys in the secondary. I think Darian Kendrick he's a first-round corner without a doubt.
we're gonna be talking about him soon. Do not worry.
He always has been, but I'm excited for this game.
I'm excited for this game to win. The spotlight will call on those. Now let's go ahead and talk about my favorite section, everybody else's favorite section. Hashtag Hussam's Hot Shots. JB, I was thinking, man, we could have done Bogan's Beast as well. It would have been fun. But let's go ahead and talk about Cincinnati quarterback Desmond Ridder as he plays up against the University of Houston. So, look, I mean, he's one of the more polarizing names. All right, he's leading the undefeated Bearcats to the AAC championship and a possible berth in the playoffs under the immense pressure of unfair some expectations to put up style points, to remain in striking distance and prove the Bearcats' point. He's thrown for over 3K yards, 27 touchdowns, 8 picks, with a resounding win up against the 21st ranked BYU Cougars. His ability to showcase in big games needs to be proven today, and those seesaw performances that he's had throughout the season cannot be shown. Otherwise, they'll go ahead criticize this team and Ridder as a whole. So he's got to limit turnovers, be precise. He's got to be efficient, accurate. Now, everybody, he's taking criticism from everybody for his inconsistent ball placement and accuracy. So he needs to show the doubters that there is another level development-wise that he can reach. And look, there's a lot riding on this fine performance from him. Can he cash in today?
Since we're in the Hassam's hot shots portion of the show, I actually thought this last week, and I still think it coming into today. I think Houston's going to win this game. That's just been my thought process going to the game. I feel like Houston. Cincinnati's been up and down. They haven't been up and down, but when you actually watch them play, there's not a dominance about them that you would like from your group of 5 teams. Like you said, Desmond Ridder, for me, I think he's a very inconsistent prospect. When you can't make those throws across the middle of the field, and we're talking about here's the crazy thing. Here's the crazy thing with Sam. With all the ways that all the rules that the game has made to make offensive players more safe and make the game safer, the middle of the field is basically given to offenses. And for you to not be able to hit those throws in the middle of the field says a lot about your game. And then we're talking about a guy who's played a lot of football. So how much better is he actually going to get at doing that? You're still seeing bonehead mistakes. You're still seeing him not fully drive throws in the intermediate area of the field. You're still seeing him lack some touch on throws. It's scary. And then Houston has playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. We were talking about, like you said, it's a game of emotions. Those guys are going to come out and play too and give them their best shot. They want to ruin your season. They don't care if you represent the group of 5 in the college football playoffs. They want to end that season for you. So it's going to be a big test for Desmond Ridder. Obviously, he's going to go out there and put gaudy numbers up every week. That's what he does. But how does he look as a prospect at the end of the day? The numbers never really cut it for me at the end of the day when it comes to him, because you watch so many of the throws that he makes in the game. You're just like, I think he's struggling. I don't see it personally. So
Bogan is out on Ridder. Now, as we move forward from here, we're going to be talking about running back Tyler Goodson, who's going to be playing up against this Michigan Wolverines team. I mean, he's facing Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo, that edge tandem that can wreck any offensive game plan. Now, look, as we said it before for the pregame report, Iowa would like to establish a strong running game to avoid putting their offensive line and quarterback at risk in the mercy of Hutchinson handle job. Now he's a fleet-footed running back with long speed, and he can catch the ball really, really well. He can attack the leverage on angle and wheel routes. On the ground, he's tough. He can fight for those yards that you want to get as a running back. He's slippery. He's got great cutting ability to work against the grain of the defense, and somewhat good vision. His name sometimes becomes forgotten in this running back class, but he's talented and impactful. How can the Hawkeyes basically find ways to feature him in the Big Ten championship game?
Like you said, you got it. When you got a guy like this and you have one playmaker, teams are going to be focused on him. They're absolutely going to be focused. If you really think about it, he's probably the only threat they have on that offense, which is pretty sad to say. But I mean, like I said, that's Iowa at the end of the day. You don't know what you're going to get from the offense side of the ball. How creative are they going to get on offense? Is your idea of trying to get your best player going by sticking to your base plays and we're just going to run inside zone all day and hope it pops and hope we block up front? Or are you actually going to try, okay, let's go put him in the slot. Let's run some bubble screens. Let's get him in space. Let's run some wheel routes out the backfield. And that's what it's all about with Tyler Goodson. Like, you got to get him in space. You got to be able to, because Michigan's going to come in. They're going to stack the box. There's no threat. There's no passing threat. Like, we actually might see Michigan go back to the Don Brown style of defense. We just go run cover one all day. It's not guys that threaten you on the outside from Iowa. So, I don't know how good of a game Tyler Goodson's going to have, to be honest with you. If he's the focal point of the Michigan defense, you're the only threat on that team. They're probably going to try to pull something where they make Iowa play with their hands tied behind their back, unless Iowa just gets very creative with the way they scheme up their run game. I see him struggling tonight because he's all they have.
Oh man! Now we go to the defensive playmakers who are playing in these big championship games. We're talking about Terrell Bernard from the Baylor Bears. Basically, the Bears have one of the best defenses in the country. They're fast, physical, and fly to the football. He is the leader and the veteran for this Bears defense. He's aware of their potency, versatility, and the physicality the Oklahoma State Cowboys rushing attack offers. In their 24-14 loss earlier this season, the Bears defense close to 220 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Bernard, he's going to need to play downhill and meet their backs in the lane, taking away their strength and putting the ball into Spencer Sanders' hands to win through the air. As you said, you don't really like or trust Spencer Sanders' ball to win through the air. And when tasked to pressure Sanders, Terrell Bernard has to make him uncomfortable. Now, look, he's going to hear his name called in April, but what does he got to do in those run games, and how can he really flood the gaps so his name gets called even sooner in the NFL draft?
There's going to be – so Terrell Bernard's game is – he's excellent sideline-to-sideline guy. He's got a great tackling rate because he covers so much ground. What you want to see from the day is, like, when you want to see guys tackle NFL-type backs. Now, it's Oklahoma State's running back Jen Warren, an NFL-type back. It's yet to be seen. I know he doesn't have all the size requirements and everything, not necessarily super explosive, but he's been productive. And at 5'7", 215, he's going to pack a punch. So when you meet him in the hole, he's going to try to run you over. And that's one of those things where you want to see Terrell Bernard bring that physicality. You want to see him bring that funk to him. So when they meet in the hole, you want to see him be able to stop his momentum, drive him back, and limit yards after contact. I think he's gonna have a pretty big day, but it's a matter of what a big day defines. Are you having a big day because a box score watcher sees you have 13 tackles, but when I cut on the tape, you made all your tackles 5 to 6 yards past the line of scrimmage? Are you going to be active around the line of scrimmage? Are you going to be disciplined in your run fits? Like, there's times when you can't shoot gas, but then there's going to be times where you have to take on a block to free up your teammates, because that's what being disciplined in the run game is going to do. So I'm excited to see how that matchup goes between those two. Like you said, do they send him on blitzes to chase down Spencer Sanders? Or do they spy Spencer Sanders? They drop Bernard in coverage a little bit. Just want to see him do a little bit of everything. You want to see the way Aiden Hutchinson played last week. In big games, you want your big players to be the X factor.
And you want to see that versatility and creativity as a linebacker, because nowadays linebackers who can do everything, they don't come that often anymore, man. They really don't come often. anymore. Now, as we flip the switch from linebackers to the edge class, I mean, this is a defensively rich defensive end class. I've seen our boy Devin Jackson at Real D Jackson on Twitter talk about Cameron Thomas a lot. I mean, he's wrecking the ball on the defensive line, and his versatility is evident as he aligns everywhere along this Aztecs defensive front. He's tied for 12th in the nation in sacks with 10.5. He uses his powerful punches, long levers, his arms, and relentless motor to create plenty of opportunity on opposing quarterbacks. I mean, he's a leader along this defensive line. So, do you think with another strong showing up against Utah State, with multiple pressures and maybe even adding a sack or two, fuels the fire behind this defensive prospect?
Yeah, when it comes to defensive ends, you're not even necessarily looking for high sack numbers because we've seen guys like gosh, I forgot his name. Oh wait, from last year's class
Yeah.
have zero sacks and still
Number
get
one
drafted.
pressure among rookies.
Yeah,
Number one
it's
pressure among rookies.
Still get drafted very high, but you saw last year when you start diving into his advanced metrics that he had an insane pressure rate. Now it's a matter of, okay, do you get pressures, but do you finish? So you want to see him not just get around the quarterback, but be able to bring down the quarterback. You don't want to see him just get into the backfield in the run game. You want to see him be able to bring down running backs. I know Chris Long, the former top 3 pick for the Rams, had a good career in the NFL as a defensive end. He mentioned how if he had been a good finisher, he probably would have had 25 more sacks in his career. That's one of the things that people overlook in scouting when it comes to looking at defensive ends. It's about how you finish, because it doesn't matter if you get back there and you don't actually make the play. Yeah. You want to create pressures, but at the end of the day, I need the quarterback down, because you can create the pressure, but the quarterback can roll out and go throw a rope for 15 yards, and that'll be a first down. So Thomas is one of those guys. Today has to be a big game for him because you're playing in the conference. You're playing the Mountain West. It's not dominant football. So you're expected to come out there and dominate in these kind of games. Like I said, be the X factor, be the guy you're supposed to be, and show up.
Yeah, he needs to beat that up against Ohio State. And we're going back to the last 2 players here for Georgia. Lewis Cine, just fantastic safety. I mean, this safety class is deep for one of the most talented groups in this draft. And to the point, talented and versatile prospects, they're not discussed to the magnitude they deserve. We talked about Daxter Hill already. But Lewis Cine, he's athletic. He's a hard-hitting safety. And similar to Roger McCreary last week, this is going to be his biggest challenge of the season with Alabama's offense. I mean, he's a hunter with fantastic play recognition. He's physical, fearless, striker, and he's a great downhill safety. He can diagnose and anticipate running lanes as well, and he remains under control for making those stops. I do think that Kirby's smart. He's going to use Cine to attack this Alabama offense in a variety of ways. Like, he could be that deep safety in the center, be a nickel. Maybe he could be one of those dime backers, possibly in the box, just as run support. He could be that strong safety in the box for run support. And look, you have to find ways to disrupt Bryce Young's ability to process that post snap, which he's been really good at. Now, Cine has the abilities and the talent and the physicality to put on a Broadway-esque performance. As you said, the biggest players will need to play in this biggest games. So if the bright lights hit Lewis Cine, will he perform?
Yeah, I think Lewis is going to perform or Cine. I've watched him since the summer. At one point, he was safety 2 for me. I've always thought he had first-round ability. The biggest thing coming into the season for me with him was I said he literally at the end of one of our reports was he is a couple plays on the ball away from being a first-round safety. But then, of course, he comes to the season. I think he got like 2 picks earlier on in the year, had some pass deflections, even forced a fumble. He's a stud. He has an enforcer's mentality on the back end. He's coming down as a heat-seeking missile. His closing burst and on his tackles is insane. When he comes out his break, he's covering ground quick, coming downhill. He takes good angles to the football. And he lays the boom on guys when he gets there. Even though he looks like a guy who's a little thinner, he probably could have had another 5 to 10 pounds in his frame as well. And he's a heck of an athlete, man. Like you said, I think he could give you snaps into single high. He can go give you snaps in the slot. play some man on tight ends because he has that kind of athletic ability to not just cover tight ends, but cover some of your better tight ends, like your true wides, your true guys who split out. I think he has ways to go to cover slots. So I wonder how Bama would use that to their advantage.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see him in the short zone as well. Because
Mm-hmm.
you see him back there deep, like he's working with a lot of space, but it's going to be interesting to see how he works with the shorter field.
I think his short zone stuff was some of the coolest thing I saw about his game that made me like him more because he does a lot of things that he did some things that I just felt like, oh wow, you can't really teach guys stuff like that. There were some plays where he was playing as a skiff player where he's rerouting his 2, seeing three, or he's rerouting 3, seeing number 2, passes his 3, takes on his 2, passes the 3 to the guy, the zone over next to him. And you're just like, that's stuff that guys couldn't do if they tried. Yeah, like guys aren't able to do that consistently. Like he's seeing other routes, rerouting, still keeping his eyes on the quarterback when he needs to. It's like, okay, he's really deciphering what's going on. He understands his role in the defense. So those are things like that make me excited.
Now, before we finish it off, you got to talk about your boy DK, Darian Kendrick. I mean, my guy, he transferred from Clemson to Georgia, and he is making waves, man. Talk about him in full length.
Derrick Henry's one of those guys. I don't think there's ever been a time in his career where I didn't feel like he was a first-round corner. He's just such a natural, gifted athlete. He was a wide receiver when he first got to Clemson. He actually moved to cornerback out of an emergency situation, and Clemson found out pretty quickly in one of their practices, oh, wow, he's the best corner we have on our roster, even with guys like A.J. Terrell and stuff there. And he had only been practicing for like 2 days. So he's just such a naturally gifted athlete. I think out of the corner class this year, he's probably going to be my corner 3 behind Andrew Booth. He's going to make a strong push for 2, actually, because I think some of the technical parts of his game are a little higher than Booth's. And athleticism, Booth's a freak, but Darren Kendrick's pretty freakish in his own right. He's just not flashy. The game's not as flashy as I'd say, but he's such a gifted player, man. I think he's playing the best out of all the corners in this class this year. I think he's played the most consistent, played the most solid football. He has been up and down all year. He has great eyes, and the crazy thing was his biggest problem was when you go back to his Clemson tape, he's giving up deep throws in cover 3, which drives people nuts sometimes. But this year he's shown the ability to pass off routes in zone, go make plays on balls that aren't even in his zone, see things coming back into the zone. It's been a revelation for him. He's starting to put it all together. The mental side of the game, technique. He's pretty clean technical wise. He can run with anybody in the country. Hips are fluid. He's shown that he could be a tackler in the run game and the screen game. So a guy I'm so excited about. He's been through a lot. It's going to be a big stage for him as well. Line up with Jameson Williams, John Mechie. So it's going to be a big stage.
It's going to be a big stage for DK. Lights are going to call on him. If he can prove his worth, it could be a surefire lock as one of the first-round corners as well. She's got a question from Robbie Gosford. Is Bam Knight eligible for the draft this year? I do think he's talking about Zonovan Knight from NC State. I do believe he is a junior, so he is draft eligible. I'm not so sure if he has declared it yet. JB, you know anything about that?
No, I have no idea if he's declared or not.
All
so,
right.
But I do think
that answers your question, Robbie.
Yeah, I do think he's draft eligible.
Yeah, he's definitely draft eligible. Well, we got 4 minutes up until the first championship happens. Yep. So, JB, thank you so much for coming on. Where can everybody find you at?
Oh, we got right there in the little thing, Bogan 5 on Twitter. Sometimes I tweet, sometimes I don't, but I make sure I try to give some good insight on some of these games, some prospects every now and then, and just enjoying watching football, man. Enjoying seeing other people's work on Twitter, retweeting guys, giving their due as due. So,
of course, man. So make sure you follow JB on Twitter. Make sure you follow at FinManiacs on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. You can find me. My Twitter's right there at Hussam Patel. As always, guys, let's hope the Miami Dolphins beat the New York Giants next Sunday, and you guys enjoy your college football games. You too, JB. As always, guys, fins up, baby.